Fantasyland is dedicated to the young and the young in heart, to those who believe that when you wish upon a star, your dreams do come true.
That's right. As you may have guessed from Walt Disney just said himself, today we're diving into Fantasyland, but with a little if you know twist. That's right. When we talk about Fantasyland, we love, as Disney fans, we love Fantasyland. It's those details, right? The smells, the sounds, all those moments that you get and you only know from Fantasyland's true parks. True park fans just kind of know. And, this is all in good fun. And it's going to spark a little nostalgia, I think, when you think about your memories from growing up and maybe even more so nowadays being adult in Fantasyland, Michelle.
Yeah, we're going to go through, a couple things, point out some things that hopefully maybe one, it'll, like Tom said, spark some of that nostalgia for you. But maybe some things that you might feel like, oh, I never really paid attention to that. And I think it can make for a better experience. So
I agree. And and when you really think of Disneyland specifically, originally, but then also Magic Kingdom and many of the Disney parks around the globe, it's Fantasyland. That is it. That is maybe what your first impression is, especially as a kid growing up and when you're first introduced to Disney parks, and especially those Magic Kingdoms or Disneyland itself.
Yeah, that's great. So that's actually a good lead in, honey, because I think we should really start like that feeling of it starts here, right? It's kind of an iconic entry moment feeling that you have when you walk into Fantasyland. And there's also like energy that you feel that it's like, especially if it's in the morning, right? It's the start of a magical day. If you know, you know. So, let's go through some of that. Like if you're staying on property at Walt Disney World and you get to know what the correct way to go in to access Fantasyland during that early entry period.
There is a direction you need to go.
Yes. And it's not necessarily easy to notice or know intuitively. So, you want to definitely kind of watch for the signs or ask a cast member. There's also that rope drop stampede, like to Peter Pan's Flight. Now, for real pros, for real people who, if you know, you do that walk run kind of thing. So you don't get caught by any
walk with the best of them. Yes. To that Seven Dwarfs Mine Train as well. I think those are the two, at least in Magic Kingdom, that you got to get to.
Right. And at Disneyland, definitely Peter Pan's Flight for sure. You also have that special thrill when if you're not doing rope drop or early entry and you go through the castle, and that's pretty special if you have that opportunity. And one of the things that I don't know that everybody really is aware of or appreciates is that you're being transported out of your regular life. And I think everybody realizes that. But there are some things to take note of. Like there is a Cinderella's mosaic mural on that wall. And it is beautiful. It's handmade, this mosaic that was there on opening day. And what's really funny is I have some fun facts to share with you about that as well. So if you got let's take a look at our first slide here. And that is just a portion of the mural there. And as you can see, what we found out at Destination D23 is the Disney legends, John Hench and Herb Ryman, actually had their likeness built into this mosaic, and it was kind of a cute nod to honor them or whatever. But
so for those of you watching this on YouTube, you can see the slide, and that was we didn't know, but now if you know, you know,
right?
That's something that we'll be looking for anytime we get the chance to see that in mosaic at Cinderella Castle.
Yeah, it's really beautiful, and it's like I said, I think a lot of times people, myself included, we just kind of, you're going for a destination, trying to get into Fantasyland, maybe trying to do that run over to one of the attractions, and you don't take note of that.
And you don't always at Disneyland, you can almost always walk through the castle, through Sleeping Beauty Castle to get to Fantasyland. And it's a magical way to get there. It's not always open for you at Magic Kingdom. So if that opportunity does arise, you have to take advantage of
Right.
it, because it is semi-rare. Usually you're going around it some way, shape, or form. So if you get that opportunity, take advantage of it and get through Cinderella Castle.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, because they definitely close it off when there's going to be the stage show in the front of the castle. And there are other times too that they do. So like Tom said, it's worth making that extra effort if you see that it's open to take a look at that storytelling through this mosaic.
Because if you know. That's right.
Another fun fact about the castle, also something we recently found out, is that the Disney family crest, which originated in France, was added to Sleeping Beauty Castle above the entrance in the 1960s. Once the family discovered the design of the Disney family crest, and ever since then, it's been added to the Disney castle. So if you're watching on YouTube, we have a photo here that is displaying the one both at Sleeping Beauty and Cinderella's castle that you can see the Disney family crest there. Thank you.
Yeah, something to definitely look up. If you're seeing this on YouTube, you can see it. If you're not, look it up, and then when you get to the parks, you can go and try and find it. Maybe as a little scavenger hunt for yourself during the day. Where is the crest on the castle?
There you go.
There it is. There's Walt's family crest.
Good thing. I hadn't thought about that, baby. Very good. So another aspect of Fantasyland, and honey, you kind of talked about it, is the music is definitely there. It's a part of it, although it's very subtle. And as you're walking through the land, if you really are taking notice, you're hearing the melodies drift and go to the next attraction. As you approach attractions, the music is synchronized with what attraction you're in front of. And again, it's one of those things, if you're not really paying attention, you don't notice but it is part of what brings you into the immersion of being in Fantasyland.
Yeah, we've talked in the past about the smells going through down Main Street, USA, and other parts of the park too, including, yes, Fantasyland. But yeah, and the ambiance, the sounds that you hear going everywhere. And that is true also of Fantasyland, and specifically to the various areas you go to kind of draw you in to, okay, I'm over by Snow White now. Oh, here I am by Winnie the Pooh.
Right.
Here I am by Mr. Toad. Depending on what park you're in, between those two. Obviously, if you know, you know. But yeah, here we are. We must be near Neverland, because I'm hearing some of the great Peter Pan sounds.
Right.
It does take you in and just embraces you and makes you want to ride those attractions that much more. Not that we don't want to ride them anyway.
Right. No, definitely true. And like I said, these are very subtle things that you may not really take notice of, but it is something that is affecting your feelings about this land.
Yeah, so. And it's a good jumping off point there to talk about the feelings of Fantasyland, because man, the feels are big time, because if you know the feels when you get into Fantasyland. The moment you step in there, you see the buildings, it's the colors, the sounds. We were already just talking about the sounds. Yeah, it's just like you're in a fairy tale. It's also one of the first immersive lands that Walt and his team ever created, literally catapulting you into those movies you loved growing up, or loved, maybe you grew up around those movies, or maybe you grew up and watched them later, but they're there in front of you and ready to take you inside these movies. And that's why adults feel so connected. It's the nostalgia. It allows you to break out that inner child from either being there and experiencing those right after seeing the movies, or from going back and remembering from watching them. So let's go through and let's kind of share some of those feels you get, maybe specifically when you go to Fantasyland, sweetheart.
Well, one of the things that I thought about was if I'm at Disneyland, Fantasyland, for example, the Matterhorn bobsleds, there's just such a blend of sounds, whether you're hearing the ride, the attraction, you're hearing people laughing or screaming. You got the polka music playing in the background. And, if you're really lucky, you hear the horn of the monorail as it passes overhead. It just is so unique that you have all of that. And I think it's special to me because I really didn't go to Disneyland until I was an adult. I was a young adult, but still an adult. And I could tell, and especially being around the Matterhorn, since that is only at that park, it really made me appreciate what Walt created and how it all started. And even though it wasn't as large or as grandiose as the Magic Kingdom, it's special.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you brought that up because that leads into what I wanted to talk about. And it is at Disneyland, and it is in that exact area you're talking about where, yes, you have the Matterhorn there, the majesty of the Matterhorn and the fun that's you hear emanating from that. And then maybe possibly the monorail coming by. Yes, it's not really fantasy, but more a little tomorrow, but still it's a wonderful part of it. And then in that area of Disneyland, if that's where you hit Wonderland as well. And yes, of course, the Mad Tea Party is in Magic Kingdom, but there at Disneyland, you get the teacups, which granted, I do not ride on. I do not, but I appreciate them very much. And then one of the best dark rides you're going to find at any Disney park, Alice in Wonderland there, that is a little bit inside, a little bit outdoor.
Right.
It's just something sweet, magical, wonderful, a little mad, a little fun. And you get all that in this one little area there and especially for those of you who have never been to Disneyland, you've only been to, say, Magic Kingdom's Fantasyland. When you get to experience that little area within Disneyland, it brightens your world and it just makes Fantasyland shine for you that much more, especially if you are a fan of that movie or the characters or any of that. It's really, really brilliant part of Disneyland specifically.
Right. And that's one of the first attractions that Scott, once, he was starting to get used to going to Disneyland, that he kind of had to muster up the bravery to do that, but he requested to go on it. And you could just tell he was proud. He was
that was his thrill ride
right
there. I mean, going in and out of that and the sunshine out of it, you could see he was like, he was like that the whole time, but he had a smile on his face at the end. And kind of got over that hurdle, and we were very proud of him for doing that, because it's not like there's a few rides he'll go on regularly, and for him to kind of get out of his comfort zone and go on that attraction, it's something we will always remember for sure.
Right. Yeah, definitely. The other thing for me is seeing the carousel, and that could be at either park. I don't know why, but it does remind me of princesses, and I couldn't for the life of me really explain or put my finger on why it just really feels Fantasyland for me. But when I see the carousels, because even as a child, I wasn't a huge fan of carousels. I would go on them, my parents would take me on them or whatever, but it's just seeing them. And especially, at night when it's all lit up with all the lights and they're twinkling and you're hearing the music, it just, to me, is like such a wonderful, warm feeling.
Well, it's one of those things, and the carousel is on my list too, because it's one of those things, you grow up, you're very young, and a carousel is just fun. It's just a great time. The music's playing. We talk about the music already. It's playing. It's like, it's fun. You're going up and down, or maybe you're riding stationary, but either way, it's amazing. And then whether you end up going on it or not, just appreciating and remembering what it was like as a child to go on there, and then bringing your children on or children in your family on, and seeing their faces light up going through there. It's all a part of it. It's all part of the magic. And when you get that opportunity to get on there again and you can relive that childhood memory, as silly as it may seem, you're like, oh, I want to go on Space Mountain, or I want to go on Tron or whatever, if you're speaking Magic Kingdom.
Right.
And then here you are, and going on one of the simplest rides, but the ride that really encouraged Walt to open Disneyland in the first place. Because if Walt first kind of dug up the idea of doing Disneyland when he would be at Griffith Park in Los Angeles, watching his daughters on the carousel, sitting on a bench, which you can find that bench in Disneyland as well, and thinking, why isn't there a place for adults and children, for all families to have a great time. I need to create that place. He did. He created Disneyland, and it's gone on to many, many Disney parks around the world. It started with a carousel.
That's true. Good
It all
point.
started with a mouse. The parks started with a carousel.
That's very
And just
good.
outside that carousel, I want to talk about one little thing that is always fun for me, although I'm never successful at it. I've never seen anybody successful at it except for YouTube's. But the sword and the stone there, that is at both Magic Kingdom and at Disneyland Park, which you have to, when you're a kid, when you're an adult, you go up there and you try, hoping that this is going to be the time you're going to pull it out of the stone. As far as I know, I've never succeeded. I've seen videos of kids succeeding. I have not, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to keep trying, because one of these days
You never know.
you're going to get it.
That's true.
That is kind of part of the magic and fun that it kind of goes through no matter what age you are in
Right.
Fantasyland.
That's funny. That is funny. Yeah. One other thing that I thought of, actually, this might be like two things, but just from the back side of the castle, a lot of times I'll notice it, because the front, you notice the front of the castle, but there are times that I do look up and notice the back side of the castle. And it reminds me of, not many times, but a couple times I have actually eaten in the castle and at Walt Disney World. And on one occasion, I actually was seated at a window that, one of those windows that face the back. And it was just so magical for me. And so it's, looking at that, I just remember how special of an experience that was.
Yeah, I've never eaten in the castle. I think that's pretty cool. I mean, I think just the castle that, when you go around it at different points, the different angles, seeing it from different views, everybody knows the front view and how beautiful the front view is of both castles, of Sleeping Beauty Castle and of Cinderella Castle. But then going around to the sides and getting the different unique angles,
Right.
and sometimes getting some interesting window views, and lots of different things that you can see. And sometimes the sun is shining the right way. Again, it adds to the magic of being in Fantasyland, adds to the fairy tale experience.
Right, exactly. I had one other thing, but did you have any other?
No, go ahead.
So my other thing is actually, and I'm not sure if I even ever shared this story with you, but my mother told me, now this was that I thought was just such a great story when she shared it with me. My younger brother, he had quit college during his first semester, and we were all kind of like surprised and, obviously shocked and a little disappointed, I'm sure, for my brother. He, his self-esteem had to be really taking a hit. But he and my mother went to Walt Disney World. They actually had gone several times, but in one particular time, they went and they actually ate in the castle. And my mother said they were seated at the window, and she remembered it as she's looking down, and she said the park was just packed and she was seeing all these people out there. But then my brother started talking to her, and he said, I want to, no, I have to work here. I have to get a job here at Walt Disney World. And I mean, to me, I've always been very envious of people who have such passion or know what it is that they really want, especially at a relatively young age, or young adult or whatever. For me, I was just so thrilled for my brother because he did follow his dream. He worked there for over 20 years, and I just thought what a wonderful experience, and that it kind of came to light when he was there at Fantasyland.
Yeah, I grow up now and I'm like, I wish I had that goal. I wish I had thought I really want to work for Disney. I didn't. Unfortunately, it struck me at an age that's probably, well, not that I couldn't work for Disney even to this day, but maybe I'm a little past where I could have been, where I could have really done some really fun stuff throughout my life at Disney, and we moved up to the company, and who knows where I would have been now. Of course, then we wouldn't be doing this podcast.
This is true. This is true.
Take it for what it's worth.
Some other things that in thinking of this topic of if with Fantasyland, is considering some of the underrated corners or experiences people can have even as adults at Fantasyland. For example, just visiting Cinderella's fountain, which is adorable. The other thing is getting pixie dusted in the Sir Mickey shop at Walt Disney World. Anybody can do that, adults. And let me tell you, I've done it. I got very emotional.
We did it on your birthday,
That's
as you
right.
should. You should be pixie dusted on your birthday. Michelle is usually pixie dusting everybody else, but you deserve your right to be pixie dusted on your birthday for
You're
sure.
sweet. Thank you. The other thing that a lot of people who are not in the know is that there is a wish book that you can actually go in and write your wishes inside of a Pinocchio Village House restaurant, that quick service restaurant that's right next to It's a Small World. The other thing that some people might not realize, even though they go through that tangled restroom area, that in the evenings, after sunset, there are photo ops for the pictures with the lanterns, the lit lanterns, which is really pretty great.
Even when it's not just the photo pass photo op with the lantern, which is amazing and fun. And if you get the opportunity, you should take advantage of it. Sometimes the wait can be a little long, but it's a great picture. But it's the most interesting bathrooms there are virtually anywhere because yes, they're neat during the day, but then you get at night and all those lanterns that are hanging light up, and it's beautiful, stunning, and you can get to see Rapunzel's tower in the distance and everything. It's really, really nice.
Yeah. I mean, another thing that if is that in that area, there's these little, that looks like cut off tree stumps. And those are actually charging ports if you ever need to.
Those are important.
Yeah, to charge your phone or whatever. Those are right there.
Definitely, if you know.
Yeah. The other thing is, and I know people know It's a Small World, but it's like some of the things you might not actually think about is, especially on hot days like what we've been experiencing lately, or very rainy days, that is a great way to go in and still have a wonderful time and enjoy a ride. It's like heavenly in those situations, And the other thing is the clock. Now I know they have the clock at both parks. The one at Disneyland is pretty stunning, and it's right outside and noticeable. But I would really recommend taking the time to watch that, especially when it gets on the hour, but it also does little things on the quarter hours. And it's just such a nice little thing that I don't think a lot of people know to watch for.
Yeah, just a little touch of It's a Small World on the outer side of it, and just fun. And it's a little tiny parade,
right?
A little tiny clock parade. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, it's very sweet. Very, obviously Mary Blair inspired kind of thing. The other thing, especially at Disneyland at nighttime, how they light up that Small World facade.
And in the holidays,
Yeah,
forget it.
right.
Forget it. That is amazing.
It is amazing. It's an actual experience to see that happen. And now during the 70th anniversary, where they have the Tapestry of Happiness, they're doing more like with projections and things like that. It's really something and worthy of taking a moment and experiencing. So,
yeah, for sure. For sure.
A couple other things are like Snow White's Enchanted Wish, where you have the evil queen peeking out from the window there.
Yeah, I mean, if you look up at the right time, there's the evil queen.
It's pretty cool.
It is cool. And when you especially when you catch it, if you happen to be watching and look for it and see it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice.
And one other thing that I was thinking of too was Snow White's grotto. Where, you're going to want to make a wish. And I have a couple, in fact, 3 fun facts about that. So if you're watching on YouTube here, you can see a picture of the wishing well and the grotto, Snow White's grotto. Those sculpts were ordered from Italy. Walt really enjoyed them, loved them. He asked John Hench to find a place for them at Disneyland. So it was like in 1960. I think it originally opened up. It officially opened up 61. The Snow White's grotto is what he created. But what happened was he kind of had quite a challenge because these statues had Snow White the same size as the 7 dwarfs. The archives researched why this was, and apparently there was a soap that was of Snow White and the 7 dwarfs, and to have it in the package, the manufacturer made them all the same size. So the sculptures copied that.
Yeah, so dwarfs. Or either that or Snow White is very dwarfy.
Right. So, John Hench used forced perspective, which is a technique throughout the parks that he put Snow White on the top of the grotto. So she does seem to be proportionately in size. So, you know, it it's the other interesting thing about this that we know that, and we've talked about this on a former episode, how Tokyo Disneyland is a replica, actually a mirror image of Disneyland. They also replicated the Snow White to be the same size as the dwarfs, but make the grotto to be using forced perspective to have it look more what you would expect.
And of course, if you're wondering where that is, if you know. Yeah. So it's on the right-hand side is if you're heading towards Sleeping Beauty Castle. And it can be easily missed because, maybe you head one way and go towards the Matterhorn, or maybe you go through the castle. Well, there's a little pathway in between that also has a doorway leading into Fantasyland. And if you walk by there, that's where you'll find the wishing well and the grotto.
Right.
And sometimes you'll hear some singing there.
Right.
And you can make a wish and make wonderful things happen, or just pause and take a moment and just take in the tranquil setting, which is really nice because usually it's very uncrowded there and it's peaceful, and you can just take a moment during your busy day out at Disneyland.
Yeah. The wishing well was actually Walt's idea. He thought it would be a way to have people toss coins and actually from the start planned to collect and donate those to charities. They are now what really help also fund a lot of the Make-A-Wish nowadays. But he also wanted to discourage people from throwing coins into the moat by the castle.
Not that stopped anybody. Yeah. But it does help.
Yes. But anyways, there is some fun things that can be appreciated over there at the wishing well.
Definitely. All those things make it spectacular and great places to, again, there's the usual things, getting to the various attractions, but those little touches around that just make it that much more special. Just like every place else that when you go to Disney parks, you find them everywhere.
Right.
In Fantasyland, they're really, really great and take you, again, little things that just add to the ambiance of being inside this fairy tale experience.
Yeah, being a part of the story.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. So, you already kind of talked about it a little bit, but one of the things we love about Fantasyland is the way it is at night, and that's true of so many lands within Disney parks. But man, there's just something special about Fantasyland. It's like they take you back in time with some lit lanterns. Maybe Dumbo, the little lights dancing around on the castle, of course, gorgeous as always, all lit up. Every detail at night, just, I don't know, there's not a better word for it than just say it just becomes a little more romantic than anything else. It's, a matter of fact, we'll say it. It's a perfect place for a date night. Fantasyland is perfect. For those of you looking to take someone on a date, take them to Fantasyland, because that is the place. You can do that carousel ride with them under the stars. Walk by the moat, a nice little, romantic walk by the moat at night. I think more than any other land specifically, I guess it depends on what you're into.
Right.
But I think Fantasyland is the most romantic land for a date, Michelle.
I totally agree. There's so many ways to approach it too. Like, first of all, like you're talking about the lighting, sometimes when you're going through just before sunset, the lights are starting to come on. It's not quite bright anymore. So you get a little bit of both daylight and that, pretty cool vibe there. You mentioned the carousel. Well, here's an idea. Why not do side-by-side horses, where you're with your loved one on the carousel and, get that storybook vibe going in that for yourselves, and as a bonus, it makes great pictures there at the carousel with the lights twinkling at night. Another, when you're talking about pairing up, there are some other rides that you can have that romantic twist. Peter Pan's Flight. How about like when the ride is dipping over London? It's a great time to, catch a little glimpse in your loved one's eyes there.
Right. I know everyone thinks of Paris as the city of love, but hey, flying over the skyline and Big Ben and everything in London, pretty romantic
Yeah.
just on its own.
Yeah.
There's a lot of love there. Yeah, definitely. That's worth it for
Yeah.
sure.
And take advantage of, be a little creative, grab your loved one's hand while you're on that ride, and the same thing with the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. When you get that photo op, hey, smooch, smooch shot.
Figure out where it is if you remember where it is. Definitely. Why not?
Right, right. But you also talked about Dumbo, and that's again, especially when you're talking the double Dumbo setup that they have at Walt Disney World at nighttime. It's just next level dreamy. Or consider maybe riding Dumbo during the fireworks, something a real core memory.
I'm going to add another one on here.
Yeah.
The Storybook Canal boats at Disneyland. You're
Mm.
talking about a romantic little boat ride being narrated as you just kind of sail through all these magical lands that you know from the movies. And it's just sweet and beautiful. And yeah, you want to be snuggled up next to someone that you really care for during that moment where you're sailing around.
Right,
sure.
right. Oh, good one. I don't think we've done that at Disneyland.
No, we
but
need
we've
to
done,
do that here soon.
Yeah, but I think we've done that at Disneyland Paris.
Yeah, I've done it at Disneyland Paris.
Yes,
That's correct.
yes. But talking about some of these rides and everything, what about kind of like the ultimate? How about flying a magic carpet with your loved one? Recreating some of that magic from Aladdin. It might be a little cheesy, but it's definitely romantic.
Why not?
Yeah. Now, if you have that date night feel in Fantasyland going on, we talked about some of these spots, but I kind of want to bring out and highlight how they are at night, like Cinderella's wishing well, for example, or Snow White's grotto, making a wish together. It's definitely kind of first date romantic, if anything, right? And or maybe it could be a very enjoyable place for a proposal to take place.
That's a good call.
Yeah. We talked about the lanterns at night. That can definitely be your moment, just like Finn and Rapunzel.
Flynn.
Flynn.
Eugene.
Yeah. We talked about those lanterns. Well, why not kind of recreate the Flynn and Rapunzel moment from Tangled,
That's true. I mean, that photo is a very romantic photo opportunity. The photo op, the photo pass photo op, but the lanterns there, it's about as romantic as any bathroom can be. That's what I'll say about that.
Well, if you're watching on YouTube, we have one other slide that kind of shows some of these sites. Not all of them are at night, but a couple of them. But just definitely some great ways to experience that romance, that date night there. Over at Disneyland, the Fantasyland Courtyard at night is also a place that is, very quaint and romantic. Any other spots that you can think of out there?
Oh, man, you really hit a lot of them. I mean, anything in front of the Matterhorn, is always beautiful when it's lit up at night. It's spectacular.
Yeah.
We just talked about It's a Small World and how that gets lit up if you're looking to do something in the holidays time.
Right.
If you're a very holiday focused couple or whatever, man, it's very romantic to see those lights there because it's just spectacular. If you know when you're talking about the holiday lights and It's a Small World, there's just you cannot describe them. You can see pictures of them, but until you actually see them done, it just doesn't.
True.
Yeah, there's just nothing like them.
That's true
for sure. Just there are so many fantastic places there, and of course, what's more romantic than fireworks? Fireworks are always romantic at Disney parks. And yes, of course, you can get the great view in front of either Cinderella Castle or when they actually have them going on at Sleeping Beauty Castle at Disneyland. But sometimes it's, once you've experienced that, it's nice to experience them from other angles because there are other great angles to check them out from around the castle. You can see various different views, get interesting pictures, get interesting views of the fireworks as well as the castle. And again, I'm going to go back because I am a Disneyland person. I'm going to go back to the facade of It's a Small World again and how romantic that is and watching the fireworks over that. And yes, the projections do occur on that facade
Yeah.
as well, and they're magical there. It's a different type of fairy tale experience when you're standing there in front of It's a Small World and watching the fireworks. But there are many great spots. You mentioned it, riding Dumbo when the
Right.
fireworks are going on. There's something about that. Maybe the Casey Jr. train, checking them out from that. Being on the Matterhorn,
Oh,
right? I
yeah.
mean, the Matterhorn, taking a ride on the Matterhorn, and you're in and out of it, but there's fireworks going off nearby you, man. That's got to be something special.
Right.
It's just those secret magic areas that you can find romance and fairy tale experiences at any time of the day, but at night it just really comes alive.
Right. Yeah. And it's not to, take away what you can experience in the front of the castle. But like you said, if you've done that and you want to have something, whether you're trying to be in a romantic situation or just kind of on your own, wanting to experience that fantasy land and fantasy feel and just not be necessarily amongst large crowds, there are ways to experience the fun of the fireworks in that those back areas.
Yeah, in all sorts of areas. That's the one thing about Fantasyland. And again, every single part of Disney parks has these amazing little areas, these amazing little spaces that if but Fantasyland, there's just something special about it. Again, it's that area that first transported you into these films that you knew, you loved, you grew up around the animation, and it's there. It's amazing, and you feel it's special everywhere. And it feels like you've gone back in time in some ways. It's just something. It's hard to describe, but if you know,
No, for
Well,
sure.
it's wonderful. It's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah, definitely. So I think we hit pretty much.
Oh, there's so much more we could hit. There's
Well, yeah.
definitely so much more we could hit, but I think that's going to cap it off. We want to know what's your ultimate, if Fantasyland moment. What's your ultimate Fantasyland space? Whatever it is that you love about Fantasyland, please hit us up and we'll share it either on this show or on social media. Hit us up wherever you find us, the Gmail account, social media accounts, whatever. We want to know if you know
You know.
Fantasyland spots.
Yes.